What's up, YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or wherever you are? TikTok for now. Today I'm going to show you how I made a P90 pickup out of some household things on top of some other things that I had purchased, but very inexpensive, very cool. Disclaimer, I'm not a physicist. I have never made a P90 pickup. I'm very interested in sound. I have an associate's degree from Vol State, and by no means is all of this going to be correct. So, that being said, enjoy. First things first, we're gonna go old school, handsaw. I cut 4 pieces so that I can have a couple extra. So you wanna lay these on top of each other, get them even, tape them up tight. This is going to be how we're drilling our holes, and we want them to be even in all of them. Next thing I'm gonna do is take a sander, try to get these edges nice and smooth so we won't be getting any splinters when we're trying to play this bad boy. I'm gonna unwrap that after sanding it, but now I'm gonna retape it up. So you want it to be as even and get just the outside, because this is how we're going to eventually be flipping it over, trying to drill our holes through. We want it to go through all of them at the same time so that they are even and uniform. In case we mess up, they'll all fit. For this build, I used an old Strat single coil. Now this thing is complete dog shit, so we're only using it so that we can grab these pins out, which aren't the best, but I had it laying around so I didn't have to pay anything for it. These magnets are terrible. They're ceramic. It's what they're gonna use on cheap pickups, essentially a fridge magnet. But now you can see where we're going. Next thing I gotta do is I'm gonna rip this pickup tape, cut it off. Now you can kind of see how this is all wound, which we'll be doing on ours. So it's about 5,000 times, so it's gonna take a second to rip it all off. Yep. Just keep pulling. Keep pulling. Man. Why it pays to just buy these things. And then finally, it's complete. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mark these pole pieces so I know where they are in position. I should be probably checking the polarity, but again, this is just a fun experiment. I'm gonna take this hot air blower to try to loosen some of this wax and glue that's already on this pickup. I try to get it nice and hot, melt it up. Take these pliers, push them down. Pull it out, pull one, done. Sometimes it takes a second, but just keep pulling till voila. Pretty gross, but it's what we needed. Next, I'm gonna take this pickup cover from a single coil, mark out some outlines so I know where I'm about to drill some holes. This is perfect because it'll help you line up these pole pieces so that they're in the right order. So I'm gonna try to get a drill bit that's just a tiny bit smaller so that I can wedge it in there. I would recommend using a drill press, but I'm also not a professional carpenter, so I just have this DeWalt hand drill, hoping that I make them vertical and parallel enough with each other so that they line up and can all fit through if they needed to. Next thing, I'm gonna drill the holes so I can put the mounting screws on. These kind of just keep everything in place. So I flip it over, make sure it goes all the way through, pop it out. Now this is where you need to double check your drill bits. So this is exactly why I cut 4 pieces of wood, because I cracked this one. After I got them all in, on the other piece of wood, I drilled my lead hole for my pickup wire, put in my mounting screws, and then just take a gander. It's beautiful. Next thing, I'm gonna take a little bit of polyurethane and I am going to dip the whole thing in it and let it drip dry for 24 hours. This helps hold the pole pieces in place and gives it that Krispy Kreme hot donut shine. The next thing that I need is a pickup winder, which I do not have, so I will make one. I have this pulley wheel that I made for a plate reverb. I take a motor from an old record player, throw it on there, and now we just need to power it up. So So I've got a DC power generator hooked up to this motor with some banana clips and an on-off switch. Started having some issues with it. I couldn't get it to necessarily stay the speed I wanted because it was just hauling ass the whole time. Once again, my engineering genius mind tried to put a magnet on it because, that will hold it. So I attached 2 magnets, put it on there, see if I can get it to wind, and fail. So, since speed seems to be the issue here, I take a potentiometer, hoping it'll help me be able to control the speed a little bit, which it does. So this time, it's gonna stay. It did not stay on, so what I did was I made it go even slower because this time we have finally sucked. Finally just taped it on there because gaff tape. After 4 hours of trying to get this bad boy to stay on, it finally sticks. So I've got 42 gauge copper wire that I've run through that lead hole. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there. First thing I'm gonna do is hand wind that copper around there about 10 rotations, just so it has the correct tension and it doesn't break on me. So I took a pin, made a spindle for this copper, put it through this guide, and started to wrap. The hardest part was trying to make sure the wire was going around the poles, because if it gets too far to the left, too far to the right, it'll wrap around the outside of the pickup, and then you basically have to start all over. From everywhere I read online, it said to wrap it about 5,000 times, but I don't have a counter, so I just kind of went with thickness. And lo and behold, it's starting to look like a pickup. Next, I soldered the wires to the leads and added a little bit of super glue to kind of keep it in place on top so it doesn't move around. Then I flip it over, try to get the inside a little bit so that those leads have a little bit of protection as well because you don't want to break it. After letting it dry, the next thing I want to do is try to get something over this copper so it protects it. They make a pickup tape, but I did not have that, so I took thread and just started wrapping. Now this is one of those things you don't want to do too tight because you can still break these leads off this copper wire, and once you do that, there's no going back. You have to start over. I'm going to take a little bit of that super glue, put it on the end of that thread so that it doesn't come unraveled. And for the 90th time in this video, I admire my work. There it is still. Then I'm going to take this paraffin wax. From what I read online, you need some beeswax paraffin combo, but this is what we had at Walmart. You want to dip it in there and watch for these air bubbles until they stop. So we're getting all the gaps out of that coil so that you don't have any microphonic noises, any feedback. It just kind of helps stabilize it and protect everything you just did. I let mine sit in there for, I would think, about 10 minutes, but it really just depends on what pickup and how many winds you got. I take neodymium magnets, which are not recommended because they say they can be way too harsh, but it's cheap and it's easiest to get online. Try to make sure I'm getting signal after wiring it up, and luckily I'm getting signal, which is the scariest part of this whole thing. You can kind of move these magnets around till you get the highest output that you're looking for. I found mine to be pretty central, and that's where I ended up keeping them. As you can hear, there is a ground buzz, which we'll address later, but right now I was more concerned with just getting it to pass signal and make sure it even worked. And seems to be working. Now to work on that ground noise. Took some sheet metal, which is magnetic and it'll stick to the bottom of that pickup, which I read you do not want to do, but unfortunately I had already made this when I found that out. Next thing I'm going to do is size out this plate. I want it to be just a little bit smaller than the size of the pickup so that you can't really see it, but that I can easily attach ground wire to. Once you have that marked out nicely, take some sheet metal shears, cut her out. You do need to be careful though, because this sheet metal is thin and it's sharp and it will cut you. Since I know that from experience, I decided to take a metal file and kind of smooth these edges out a little bit. Next thing, we're gonna attach that ground wire. So I just pulled an old wire off of an old electronic piece, sanded down the spot I would like to solder it on. And once again, in hindsight, I probably would have chosen a different type of metal, one that wasn't magnetic and also one that would take solder, because this was pretty tough to get to actually stick. Definitely not my best solder job, but it's connected and seems like it's gonna stay. Take the ground plate, make sure I have it stuck where I want it, added a little super glue, stuck it on there. Now we re-wax. So as you can see, a couple more bubbles coming off. About another 7 minutes, and it finally stopped. So after I pull this out, I'm gonna try to drip some of it off, but then just take a towel, wipe it down, let it cool off, let it dry. And now we have our finished pickup. I did not mention that I made this pickup for an acoustic guitar, so it's a little bit wider so that I can fit it into the sound hole and hopefully it'll stay. Now that we have this beautiful P90, let's throw her in and see how she sounds.